Welcome to the Nuclear Snell channel. This episode is about taking better pictures of your physical artworks, so that when you present them online to other people, they look rather like this, and not like this. Like this, but not like this. Because let's face it, it's a waste when you spend so much time and energy on creating your perfect physical artwork, your prop or your costume, and then you end up with a couple of crappy shots which do not convey just how good it looks to other people who cannot see it in real life. So since we're talking about photography, I would like to eliminate the question of what camera do I need to use right off the bat. You can use your mobile phone. If you have a modern mobile phone or any other comparable device, or your basic DSLR or whatever else, it is going to be sufficient enough. This video focuses on what's happening in front of the camera and what's happening behind the camera. Sure, you might need a professional multi-flash super camera setup to do a shot like this, but it is not what we're talking about in this video. We're talking about shots which just present your physical artworks nicely, show everything that they need to show, and do not get cluttered and derailed by junk information. So first of all, let's talk about what is the difference between a product shot and a story shot. A product shot is focused on the product, in this case this character or this costume, and it does focus on that either exclusively, like here, because there is nothing else going on of story or visual information, or in an ambient way, like here. So it focuses mostly on this soldier, this character design, this costume, while it still has some ambient background. So you can add some ambience to your product shots by the means of background, or as I do when I photograph in front of my plain wall, I add some ambience by the means of some light and some acting. Granted, in this one my acting looks like I just want to poop, but nonetheless, those are the ways to add some ambience to your product shots. Now, some shots successfully combine both, whether on purpose or not. So in here, it is a great story shot because we really see this character. It's like a still from a series or a film. This is, by the way, by Gaëtan Perrault, and it's inspired by the scale figures by Yamato Nakajima. And this is a great shot. You still see all the detail like you would in a product shot, but even with cooler lighting. But at the same time, it has a nice background and it has an interesting pose, everything. So sometimes you can do stuff like this, but this is difficult. So if you're an absolute beginner, I suggest you start with simpler shots. Now, a story shot is something like this, where it's all about the story. You no longer care about just showing off your costume. You have fancy light, which is fancy by itself and contributes to the overall mood, but it might obscure some of the detail that you would otherwise see with more boring light. And in a story shot, it's all about the story. All the elements of the story, the light, the background, the scenery, the characters, props, and the costumes all are combined into a story, and that story is the only thing that matters. So you can land anywhere on the scale between this and this, with all the possibilities in between. Where I don't want you to land is here, which is an earlier shot by Joseph Gorodkovsky, to which he himself said, "Now I can do better shots," or "I learned quickly to do better shots," or something to that accord. And it combines the worst possibilities you can have. You have this kind of a storyish light which chugs a lot of detail. It just drowns the costume. You cannot see the details nicely like here. At the same time, this background doesn't tell any meaningful story, but is visually just unpleasant with this too rough texture and just bad. Do not do that. Decide what kind of a shot are you doing. And you can exercise your story shots separately from your costume or product shots. That way you still show your physical artwork in an easy to photograph, nice, unobtrusive way, and people can admire that, and you exercise your story shots on a separate occasion. That is what I sometimes also do. So why is this photo so much better than this? And this is really a super important main, super duper core principle of photography here that I'm about to drop on you. You should try to show just the stuff that you are trying to show or willing to show in as flattering way as possible, while not including the visual information of anything else really in your shot. So ask yourself, for every pixel, is this contributing anything to the story that I want to tell or to the product shot that I want to tell? By the way, since I've done this shot, I wear gloves, so this doesn't happen to my hands, and so should you. But here, this hand, for example, it tells a story. It tells a story, I dirtied this up and now I'm holding this or whatever, or I'm a wastelander and I found this. Like, it adds to the ambience, okay? While here, the hand is weirdly positioned with his finger stretching out, and there is so much flesh that is unnecessary. So this part is not contributing to anything while being visually present. Angular white surfaces which are really aggressive on the eye. Everywhere you have those red surfaces, those splotches of color, all of that competing visual information that's going on here. If you look at this, the background is now a lot darker. Frame is zoomed in so much more on the object that I'm trying to show. Look at how much non-essential information is here around the object. Like, do I need all of this on this side? No. Do I need that? No. All of that information is junk information, so avoid junk information. Now, the reason why pictures like this would even exist and happen a lot of times to beginners and amateurs is because we have this thing I call selective perception. If you look at any object in your room right now and focus on it mentally, your brain will, well, focus on that object. You will perceive that object in great detail while all the other stuff around it is tuned out by your brain, not by your eyes. Your eyes still see everything that is in your field of vision, but your brain filters out that information. For whatever reason, as soon as we take a photo, that ability to do this selective perception thing is greatly diminished. So the photographer's job is to guide the viewer. The photographer's job is to eliminate all the unessential and to emphasize the essential. So what we do for this is, number one is declutter. So let's say I wanted to have this shot and I needed to have this table in the background for whatever reasons, then I would need to physically remove that box. So I want you to move unnecessary objects out of your frame, or I want you to move your feet and your torso and your other body parts to find a frame which doesn't have clutter in the background. I want you to move yourself as the photographer. Don't be static. Do not just look at this object that you have and go like, oh, I see this object, it looks good. Then you just take your phone or whatever and press on the shutter button. Before you press on the shutter button, I want you to take at least a couple of seconds to analyze your frame. Am I zoomed in close enough or far away enough? Because sometimes people will zoom in too closely on objects, such as the case here. I would, for example, leave some space here. There is this insufficient space from the edge of the frame to the object. It kind of hurts a bit. We can see, by the way, the kind of the same thing here, just a bit different by Benjamin, where he cuts into the rifle stock but not enough, so it's kind of a painful frame experience. So I want you to either leave enough space for the object, like Chris Hobbs does here. See, there is enough space on top and the bottom, and the important object or objects are not clipping into the frame. And I also want you at the same time to focus in close enough so that you're not leaving junk space around. And I want you to find nice angles and to arrange your object in a nice way. So you can see that this belt, for example, lies here just randomly. Here I position my hand nicely and I wrap this belt, I lay it around my wrist in a way that flows nicely. This doesn't take a lot of time, it just takes a conscious effort. And I want you to pause every time and think, okay, is this object lying nicely? Is this object rotated nicely? And we will now, actually, before we go through all of those other community submissions and my own examples and all that, go to my workshop and you follow me. So let's go ahead and find that light and find that angle and find that frame. Here it is on your workbench. So first of all, we see that there is clutter going on here. So we're going to declutter as much as possible. Let's position it here. Right, this is a lot better. So just around it, there is not much stuff going on. After decluttering our physical environment and positioning our object somewhere, turn on some light because it's really dim here. So I'm going to turn on a bunch of lights. So this turns that light there. This turns on this floodlight up there. And this here, when it decides to work for once, turns on that small light. We also have some light from the windows, and we have some light there, and we have some light there. And by now you're like completely terrified with how am I supposed to keep track of all those lights and understand it, and do I need to be a super light design genius / nuclear physicist? And the answer is no. In fact, I'm going to show you different light situations, different random light situations, in which you just find your light. So finding your light is a thing of feeling. So I'll just skip ahead to good perspective, which I'll address in more detail later. This is a good perspective for me, for my main shot of this vambrace. And now I want to rotate it slowly until I catch those reflections in the buckle. See that? I like that. So you might not like that. You might not want to emphasize those buckles with those lights, in which case you turn away from the light. Don't need to worry about all of your lights. Is it here? Is it there? What color is the light? Blah. Don't worry about that. Just look at the object through the camera and see, do I see sufficient details? Yes. Okay, then we have enough light. Then let's move the object in the light until we find some nice angles. Check this out. That small detail. Look how it catches the light. So those are small, subtle movements, and we're catching that light nicely. Okay? So it's just a feeling thing. Now, when would you have insufficient light or bad light? Let's turn off everything. So we turn it all off. There is just this window here in the background. A lot of times I'll see shots like this. This is a bad light which you cannot really work with because it chugs so much detail here in the front. You don't see anything. Sure, you see that stuff, but it looks like that kind of a lazy, trying to do a dramatic story light shot, but not really succeeding at it thing. So for this product shots, forget those gloomy post-apocalyptic lights unless you know exactly what you're doing. Just turn on your light or get to a place where there is enough light so that there is enough light to work with, to begin with. And let's just go around and see some other light situations. Here, a different light situation now. Well, this is kind of easy because we have some diffuse light coming through the skylights up there and being diffused all over the wall and everywhere else. So that's kind of thankful light. You cannot do a lot wrong in a light like this. Let's find some next points here. Let's find the point of clutter. Oh, I'm making a shot of my thing in the workshop and it's a piece of armor and it's lying on a crate of other armor. What am I supposed to be looking at? This line? That line? This thing? That thing? I don't know. And then sometimes it will come with a comment like, it's finished. Like, what is finished? What am I looking at? Like in this chaos, what am I looking at? Guide me. I need to be guided. The viewer needs to be guided. I need to be told exactly what to look at by means of visual design of the picture. So if I position my object here, like, yeah, this is a lot better. Not only is this crate more ambient, but it's also decluttered composition now. See what I mean? And yes, you can create interesting compositions like, for example, let's take a bunch of those random belts, right? Position them here and put our vambrace up there. Now this could be an interesting shot, but we have some clutter problems. You see in the background there is this green stuff going on and all that and all those lines that we don't need in our shot that add nothing to our story. Those buckles compete with these buckles. So we will need to change our angle here. We move ourselves around the object, we move the object itself until we find something nice. Now those buckles in the background are still there, but they're far away, they might even become blurry in the final shot or something. And now we rotate this with the most prominent side, here we go. Although here I can't decide which side is more prominent, so I might make a shot like this, and might make a shot like that. Both look nice. Now, will it kill us to have that corner showing there kind of... Is it too much clutter? No. You don't need to be like 100% accurate with this. Just try to be 85% accurate with it or whatever. Try to remove as much clutter as possible and you're golden. Now, the next point is perspective. Let's go to a different light situation again. So I'm just showing you here as I talk how many different solutions you can find just in your workshop. And we're here in a different lighting situation yet. So you see we're outside, there is harsh sunlight, but we are in the shade, which is a very thankful light situation to be in almost all of the time. And we'll talk about perspective. Oh, look at this. This is also clutter. See that? Those geometric forms? It's bad, so we'll just put it on top of that. Gone. To find a perspective, for your main shot at least, which at the same time shows the object as a whole, or at least its relevant parts, and is not too boring. Some people might make a picture like this. It's okay, it shows the object, but it's a bit boring. Now, sometimes you might make a shot like this, which has a steep perspective, it's very dynamic, but it doesn't show the object as a whole so well. I don't have the overview. This would be a nice detail shot, but not such a great first shot. So I'll find the perspective which is somewhere in between. Something like this will work fine for me. And you can see as I come here around the curve, I also can look inside of that vambrace. That's kind of interesting to show the shape. So my job here is still to just show you that physical object as much as possible, to find my perspective, just as I found my light before. Now the trick is in finding light and perspective at the same time. And I do not have a quick advice for that. You just do it. You just experiment with it. Now I'm moving myself and turning the object with me to get a better light, or what I believe to be a better light. Yeah, I guess this works, although I did like it the other way around better. There's better light here. So don't be afraid to experiment. So we found a nice perspective, a nice light. Oh, this is a nice side. Of course, you could put something under it on the other side so it doesn't roll away in this case. Just manipulate your surroundings, your camera, move yourself, find your light. In most cases you will. A point about harsh sunlight. Harsh sunlight is horrible to work with. It will leave harsh shadows, it will leave blown out highlights. No matter what you do with harsh sunlight. Oh, now I cast my own shadow. So if you're on a sunny day, yeah, this works. Now it's completely in my shadow. And if you're on a sunny day or in a sunny area, the best thing to do, as I already mentioned, is to find shade, so that there is indirect sunlight or light from the sky coming in. You want, for the more advanced ones of you, you want as many soft light sources as possible, or at least you want one big light, a soft light source. So let's get back to our workbench and try to create a nice composition. So here I have my all. I might just plop it in. So the story or the ambience we're trying to achieve here is it's just been made in a workshop. That's a legit ambience. And then we have some pliers in the background. They become so much less important once you do some perspective stuff like I did here. Like if you do this, if you do that, yeah, this object is now much more in the foreground. It might even clip into the background stuff. It's not like you're not supposed to keep it 100% clean and just photograph on white or something, which might be too sterile, actually, for my taste. You're just supposed to control the chaos. Now, I don't want the text too much to be there, sorry. Yeah, there is some duct tape. But this looks too artificially arranged now. Let's check this in here. Yeah, I guess this works as a shot. Sure, we have some geometry going on here and some geometry going there and those additional tools lying in the background. But even add the butt of this in here now. But this still looks nice because the focus is on the object, everything else is supporting it, instead of, yeah, as I've shown before, this is a horrible shot. Also, one thing I didn't mention yet at all is finding the border, right? When we're composing our shot, what we don't want to do is cutting the border like this, like ouch, on the left. Why? Either cut in properly, which you might want to do for detail shots, by the way. When you're doing a detail shot, like I'm focusing on the buckle, it doesn't matter if I show the whole object anymore or not. I just want to show the buckle. But otherwise, and even then, like I don't want that buckle or any other buckle, like look at the second one now. Now it's cutting with the corner into the frame of my shot. This hurts. I should either cut in properly, like this, and I'm talking about the second buckle here, either cut in properly like this, or leave it enough space. Watch out what happens at the borders. Now I'm kind of having a nice cut on the left. Now not anymore, because this buckle on the left is just on the border of my frame. So watch out for that too. Well, I think that's it for finding your border, finding your light, finding your perspective, and composing your shot in a decluttered way. Let's get back to the desktop computer. Now let's see the community submissions, and I will go quickly through those, not explaining the points I explained already, but just naming them. Andrew Foreman. Yes, nice background, good light, but the background could be better if it wasn't just a piece of tarp or whatever it is. Could be just more structured, textured, supportive. My own picture, a different point I didn't mention yet, if you do a collage like this, then first of all your main picture needs to be the biggest. Here I emphasize the details, why ever. It was one of my early shots. And also do not try to cram everything into one collage. You might do something like this where you have the front and the back in one shot, assuming the zoom levels, so the character size is about the same. So I'm not zoomed in on this guy up to the waist and the other one is full body or something. That would not work. But if it's approximately the same zoom level, you can combine two pictures, maybe 3 or 4. Don't overdo it with the collage. Next one, Benjamin Kovac. Clipping on the filters, either zoom in to go for that eye as a detail or zoom out. And the thing I also mentioned about the brightness, like the light characteristic here is nice, but if I go to the levels tool, I see that I can just pull this up and here we go, you can see a lot more. So light characteristic nice, exposure of the picture not so nice. I also go to my curve now and add some contrast. This is a lot better. Benjamin Kovac, again, you look in this one like you're falling over to the side because of how those lines, especially this line where the wall changes to another wall and the background runs, and the way you're slanted towards it. There is too much not good interaction between you and the background. It's not the case in here, sorry about the small picture, because that falling slanted line is much further out. It is not messing with your core. It's just clipping your hand right here. It's not something I know is a hard formula, it's just something that I find by heart when I take photos. Another shot of Benjamin. This one is just great, nothing else to add. The light is nice, it's bright enough, and it has a nice characteristic. And it shows the character, it shows the prop, it shows some story, but not too much. I love this. Yeah, kinda, but too much focus on the background. The background is focused, the foreground not so much. That is, of course, a mistake. You should focus on what's important, like literally with your autofocus, just, you know, pay attention to that. It's okay that the skull here is dark and this is bright. I like how there are two different light sources going on here, giving the object three-dimensionality, but just the background and the focus kind of ruin it. Yeah, don't clip into this, either cut or leave space. And the main light is not so great here. I don't know if we can even brighten this up. I think not, because just the light characteristic here is shoddy. it is just coming from the back. It's like that example of the Vambrace in the workshop where I turned off all the lights. If you would walk around the rifle and photograph it from the other side, you would get a lot better light here, unless you cast your own shadow there. Those horizontal lines, they are nice in a way that they kind of echo those lines on your back in the same color. However, I don't like that they're also very present and very focused. I would have loved if the background was more blurry. Aesthetic perfection from Chris Hobbs right here in terms of taking an ambient shot. You can see that the weapon is separated a lot from the rest, same as here. Except here, this is my only gripe with this. Like, this is blending into this. I don't like that. Same as here. Would have loved a bit more separation. Otherwise, it's almost aesthetic perfection. And I like how everything else is very ambient, but is not grabbing as much attention away from the prop. The prop is here, however, really brightly colored, so that really helps it a lot to distinguish itself from the background and everything else that's going on. Shots from Eric and from Fabian, really similar shots, photographically speaking, in terms of the faster clock that's going on in the background. Decluttered, then it gets a lot better. Nice, cute, baseball-based animal mascots, by the way. Even all, this was shot with a mobile phone, I believe. Nice posing. I don't like how this is going back into your hand, visually speaking, but otherwise, nice, creepy bunny stuff going on. And for a con shot, this is legit. Perfection, pure. I love how this line, the singular line, plays nicely with the angular and futuristic cyber design of the prop, and how the background here has just enough grain and detail and fades out into the background, so it holds the object and gives it ambience without being too obtrusive. Nice background here. The plants in the background are the same color as this, which is a nice echo. However, the large surface and the saturation of this and the still existing distinction of it to the background is very good. Nothing to say here about that would be negative, really. Also from Even All, yes, we have the same ambience thing going on as in the previous shot. However, this is much more obtrusive in terms of background. This is competing for attention with our foreground object, and that is something I don't like, despite it being thematically really fitting. Again, Even All, yes. Talked about this one already. My only gripe is that this baseball bat's butt is close to the border right here. Also, the background could be just a tiny bit darker. Talked about this briefly. Other points would be the mask should be either really slanted for a dynamic perspective or aligned nicely. So right now it's rotated just a bit, which triggers my OCD. Also, the light is not best. You could just see to finding your light that illuminates the object in a more holistic way, like just illuminate more of it rather than leaving this shade on the side which blends into the carpet, which is also super dark. Also, it's not focused, and I've already talked about the sides. In terms of prop, however, I do like the colors on here, especially on the filters. It's a really interesting color combination. Johnny Penn and Luciano Maverick. Let me do something real quick here. Now, this is a great shot right here, except those blues in the background. They really steal too much visual attention from the foreground, despite the fact that I like that they're there as a general idea. So I'm gonna do this, and this is something I already have done before. So it is just, I'm just desaturating those cyans in the background. And if you compare this to this, it's the same story. They're still there. They're just not stealing that much attention anymore. Moving on to this shot done by Luciano of Johnny. And I gotta say, Johnny has the upper hand on you, literally, Luciano, in terms of holding your hand and your camera steady. This is blurry. I also cannot see what is going on with her prop. Is she holding something in her hand? I can't tell. So she did a lot better job photographing you than the other way around. Sorry. This right here, you might have made this photo of her again. This is great. Yes, just yes. Moving on. Talked about this one before. Don't know if I mentioned it. Focus is right now height of the camera wise on his crotch, where nothing fancy is going on. Just move the camera up to the chest level like you did here, and that would have been a better shot. Perfect. Great. Talked about this one already. Blech. Yes. Liam Rasputin. Now we have two shots from Liam of essentially the same mask. I like the more dynamic perspective here, focusing on the front work. I do like that the mask is neon colors and so is the background. But I would have loved to seen more of that neon colored stuff, be it the same color or not, in the background of the mask. Or also this angle, this fabric ending here is nasty. It would have been nice if it continued. So just go the full way into the neon land, man. You're already there with your prop, so either give it a decluttered background or give it a full neon background. I like this shot a lot more than I like this one, because this one is just disembodied. Yes, I can see your bald head and a part of a shoulder on a second glance, but at the first impression is that it has been edited, and that fact just detracts from me looking at the mask as much as I should be, because this is not a good story shot, because not enough is happening for that, and it's also not a good prop shot, because there is just too much disembodiment and floating in blackness happening here. If you compare it to an also really dark shot I did of this thing, you can still see some background going on. So you went overboard here. I like this shot a lot more. Mark Purdy with shots on his porch of this stuff. There you have your criticism. it just find your position, find your light. I like this photo of Mark a lot more, because this looks almost like a yearbook photo or something, or like staff photo of this post-apocalyptic fireman. Just, you know, add some grunge filter and it's already a story shot of sorts. Story shots don't have to have those colored lights everywhere, of course. They can also be subtle, like this with some grunge filter. And this looks authentic because of those tiles and how this looks like a piece of an industrial facility, unlike this, which looks just like your porch. So the story here is too much visual clutter and not the story of a fireman. Here it's okay, it shows your chest work and shoulders and the hat, but again, the background is neither relaxed, visually speaking, nor tells a story. Paul Schelk. Saying that this is a bad shot himself because of the light and the reflections. Yes, the light doesn't do any favors here. It emphasizes this by reflecting too much here, and here it's all dark and the background is cluttered, and this is clipping. Basically, it's a horrible shot. Just find your everything as described in this video. Richard Anderson, The Sword. Too much stuff, too much clutter going on. At least arrange the bench to be parallel to everything else, and or just get rid of the bench or get rid of this green stuff going on. Yeah, just declutter and also ouch down here. Richard Anderson, the helmets. Now this is actually legit, like just your cool helmets, which are great designs in my opinion, by the way. I love those. Those helmets just chilling there. But I would like to see some more brightness in the middle. And I do this with this simple curve right here. There we go. This is a lot better than this. Just a simple tweak sometimes does it, especially when it comes to brightness. Robin, I like that you show two sides of the thing. I do not like that you are not separating those two shots in the middle with something like this. Alright, so that you can see it is actually two shots. You should also consider your levels, so make it a bit brighter. And here I don't like this part on the hand if we want to be nitpicky, and this part right here, so just eliminating that. Come on, give me current and below. There we go. So this is arguably a lot better already. Now, without getting too obsessed with all the detail, I don't like how this is clipping here. And talking prop work, you should also bevel this edge right here. Like, this is like so ugly and aggressive, unnecessarily in a bad way compared to those nice flowing details everywhere else, including on this buckle and everywhere. But I was actually nitpicking here. All in all, you're showing what needs to be shown, and there is not too much clutter in the background. Just frame your shots a bit better next time. So then we will get on to how I construct my albums on social media. I will start with something like this. It's going to be either the main shot or the main shot combined with the back shot. And then I will go to show the details of the hood, of the hooks, of this thing on my other shoulder, which you cannot see in this shot, but I want to show it to you because it's a great detail in physical world and I want you to see what I've done. Back stuff, this shot, which is different from this shot. Often I will see people do essentially the same shot, but at a slightly different angle. Don't do that. Either do something that is really different or don't. Then I go on to some more detail shots, the entire lower chest work, and this one plunger thing or whatever it is. I forgot the English word for it. I always say plunger. It's not a plunger. It's a... I forgot what it's called. I know what it is. Showing the stencil work and the grunge, and I end up with another shot of the character. And you can see here, shot of the character, shot of the character, shot of the character, just to mix up those detail shots. Let's go back to this, and great acting here by my pal Klotzy. And he has... and we have this shot here showing the character walking and the entire suit, and then we zoom in on the detail and on the character while also showing the detail work. The usual, showing various angles, various details I did and don't want you to miss. Moving on. Oh, this belt. Nice distressing work here, but you would have not seen it here, so it deserves another shot. Whether or not the people will go back and look, where is this belt in this whole composition, doesn't matter. I'm showing that I've done this, and I'm showing it because I think it's just nice texture going on here. More texture and so on. Don't overdo it on texture shots, by the way. This is as many texture shots where not much is going on except some distressed fabrics and all as I have ever done. I usually don't do this many. And ending up with some close-up detail. Might have ended with one of those portrait shots. And here is the prop. The Gauss rifle modification. Start with this really fancy shot with a bit of ambience and some graphic design, moving on to more dramatic perspectives. I see a lot of times people will start with a shot like this. Like, no, I want to see the whole thing, man. I also end this entire thing with, well, somewhere here towards the end, more towards the end, I show it from the other side, which is a less fancy shot than this, but shows the other side. I focus on this detail by positioning my light here. For the advanced ones of you, it's an angle, as you might see, if you're advanced, that is at sunset angle, sunrise, so that's even an additional story told here just by the light design that works subconsciously. And I emphasize this inscription here and how it flows into the rest of the prop. Some more details, and I end up with this shot of the bottom and the front, and the top. And in between, again, we see all those details I don't want the spectator, the viewer, to miss. Now, it has been a long video. I hope you learned a lot. The Nuclear Snail community group is linked in the video description. Thank you very much again to everyone who has submitted their pictures. Also, if you've made it this far, it means you are a regular viewer of my channel, and if so, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. It is also linked in the video description. Until then, I will see you in the next episode, and hail the snail.